We're doing the K-pop that defined me tag, and I'm sure you're thinking, this is not K-pop, and you would be right. This is the Western music that defined me, and if it wasn't for the 30 years I spent listening to this music, I wouldn't have a bias when it came to K-pop, because this is the music that let me know what I like. It let me know the sounds that I like, the genre that I like, textures, rhythms, beats, instrumentation. Everything that makes me the fan I am starts with these albums here. They're albums that I still listen to this day. They're albums that I consider perfect front to back, and they're albums that I would never take out of my collection, no matter what I was listening to at present time. So we're going to start with the top right and work our way left, and then just keep going kind of in a zigzag pattern. So starting with the upper right, you have Basement Jaxx's Remedy, then it's John Coltrane's My Favorite Things, followed by Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, an album that came out before I was born, with my favorite song on the album coming out literal days before I was born, Rock With You. Then we have Black Box, which I can't remember what the name of that album is, but it has some of my favorite dance music of all time. Then we have Whitney Houston's Greatest Hits, Fiona Apple's Tidal, Celine Dion's Greatest Hits, the soundtrack to Evita by Madonna, Justin Timberlake's Justified, Traveling Without Moving by Jamiroquai, Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite by Maxwell, NSYNC's No Strings Attached, D'Angelo's Voodoo, Christina Aguilera's Back to Basics, Bjork's Post, Mary by Mary J. Blige, The Best of Sade, Mariah Carey's Greatest Hits, Gloria Estefan's Mi Tierra. Underneath the George Michael Ladies and Gentlemen album, you'll find Portishead Live in NYC, Janis Joplin's Greatest Hits, Snoop Doggy Dogg's Doggy Style, which, fun fact, was the first CD I ever bought with my own money, my allowance money, and that is 25 years old. Bill Evans' Conversations with Myself, and Hall & Oates' Greatest Hits. For one reason or another, even though a lot of the genres are very similar, some of them are disparate, these are all albums that are treasures in my collection, and I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. And I think in order to understand me K-pop wise, you would have to understand these albums here. And if you have any questions about any of the titles here, what any of my favorite songs are, or if you want to talk about your own love for any of these titles, I would love to hear it in the comment section. But now that you've gotten my background, let's get into the K-pop that defined me. This is my K-pop starter collection. This most defines who I was as a K-pop fan when I first got into K-pop, and they're albums that to this day bring me back to that place that I still love, people I still love, and I'm really fortunate in that I still follow a lot of what I see here. So let's talk about it. Let's start with this. This is the Wonder Girls, Two Different Tears. This was the first Korean act I ever heard. The first Korean act I ever heard was the Wonder Girls, because they came to America to try to break into the American pop scene. And while it wasn't the most successful thing to ever happen, they got a lot further than a lot of other people did. And they exposed a lot of people to the idea even that Korea had a pop music scene. I remember seeing them on the Wendy Williams show promoting Nobody. I remember seeing the Two Different Tears video and being like, what the heck is going on? But then from that, I started to look them up on YouTube, and that's how I came into Hyunna's Bubble Pop. That's how I came into Miss A's Goodbye Baby, which is how I got exposed to Tiara and Kara and Brown Eyed Girls and Eat Your Kimchi. Now, for better or for worse, I know there's a lot of people who have mixed feelings about Eat Your Kimchi, and while I don't follow them now and haven't for quite a while, I will say that K-Pop Music Monday for a long time was how international fans came together, because we were exposed to a lot of groups that were either just debuting or had debuted before we got into K-pop. There were a lot of kind of side projects that they did that mentioned songs that were important in K-pop, either in the past or indie-wise, and I used to go on their website quite a bit to look at their countdown page, because a lot of people would nominate songs that I had never thought about, and it would expose me to different music. But more than anything, it was definitely their K-Pop Music Mondays that brought me three of my absolute faves that I'm about to talk about right now. And that would be Rain, Big Bang, and Shiny. So let's start with Big Bang, because Big Bang was the first hip hop I ever heard in K-pop. So Prior to hearing Big Bang, I thought that all K-pop was like girls in really cute dresses doing really cute things, kind of the way that people see J-pop now. That's what I saw K-pop as in 2011, 2012. And then Eater Kimchi did like a week of Big Bang. No, not a week, 3 weeks of Big Bang on their K-pop Music Mondays. They did Blue, they did Bad Boy, and I can't remember what the third song was, but I think they did like 3 songs in a row for Big Bang. And I was like, wow, Big Bang, huh? Korean hip hop, eh? And it was so cool, and it was something that I already loved anyway. I already loved hip hop. So it was nice to find something very relatable. And today actually is Big Bang's 12th anniversary, and although me and Big Bang have had differences of opinion when it came to album pricing and packaging, they haven't failed me once in terms of their music. Big Bang was also a really big part of my channel early on because I bought a lot of Big Bang stuff and did a couple of different collection videos of some Big Bang things that are still videos I'm super proud of to this day. I think they helped give a lot of information to people who collect Big Bang. And so even though a lot of the albums that I showcased in those collection videos I don't have now, I don't regret a minute I spent collecting Big Bang. I don't regret any purchase I ever made for Big Bang except for one or two, namely being M&A of the Maid album. But I have a classic video about that on my channel. But Big Bang, they're so important, and they paved the way for so much of what I came to look for in K-pop. So this is definitely something that I cherish and will cherish for a long time. But it is a rusty boy, and that's why it gets kept in the plastic. Then we have Shiny and Back to the Basics. So it's really weird. Shiny I discovered on Eater Kimchi, but I didn't discover them through Amigo. I actually discovered them through this, which is Sherlock. It was their first comeback after 2 years of being banished to Japan. I didn't know the circumstances. All I knew is that this really cool video by this really cute group of boys had come out, and I immediately had to listen to everything they did. Like, it was an automatic attraction. I can't even tell you about how instantaneous the relationship was. Like, I got through watching the Music Monday and I immediately got on YouTube and I started listening to everything. And because of that, these 2 albums were actually the first K-pop albums I ever bought. I bought them both on Amazon, and Amigo for a number of years was my favorite Shiny album of all time. You guys probably know that. I talked about it incessantly for so long. And it's only been in the last few years that my favorite Shiny album has changed, and now my favorite Shiny album is Married to the Music. But yeah, Amigo, flawless. And the love affair began through Eater Kimchi's K-pop Music Mondays. And then finally, we have this, which is Rain's special album, Back to the Basic. Rain is somebody that is so special to me. I think probably what makes Rain so special to me is that Rain has a story that's not like anybody else in K-pop. Like, he started from literally nothing. Like, he started in a family that couldn't afford the medication to keep his mother alive. He talks about drinking water with cockroach eggs in it because they were so poor. He basically earned his position in K-pop through sweat, through blood, through tears. And he has a style that is wholly his own. He has a career that anyone would be proud to have. And years later, even though he's not at the height of his K-pop popularity, and I never knew Rain at the height of his K-pop popularity, he is the legend that your faves want to be. He's the one, from winning MTV awards to being on in international movies. He's done everything, and he's done it with class and with sophistication and with talent. And he's brought a lot of other people up as well. It's unfortunate what happened with J-Tune, and that's still kind of a sore spot for me when I think about In Black, when I think about what could have been there. But at the end of the day, Rain is the very definition of a Hallyu star. and I'll always be a fan. I'll always go back in the catalog for my favorite songs, and this album in particular is the album I will always go back to. And it's funny because Rain was in the military when I first got exposed to Rain. But I remember buying this album along with a copy of Ninja Assassin on DVD and being blown away, because although the Amigo album had great music, this was actually my first exposure to like real K-pop packaging. So this thing, beautiful from the front, right? And then here's the back. You can see the track list. And then when you open it up, oh my gosh, look at that. I'd never seen anything like this in Western music. So yeah, this is a very special moment for me when it comes to K-pop, because it not only is somebody who I consider my ultimate biased solo male, but also it exposed me to the wonder that is K-pop album collecting. And from that is where I start my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel started with me unboxing Rain albums, and it started also with me using a blow dryer to show the cover of this, which is 2PM's third album, Grown. And for those of you who don't know why I needed a blow dryer for this, go back in my channel and take a look, because I'm not going to do it right now. But this album and this, EXO's Overdose, were the very first K-pop albums I ever bought in a store. Yeah, so 2012 was a really busy, crazy, fun, exploring year for me. So many things came into my life in 2012, and definitely the albums I've shown you here all kind of symbolize where I got into K-pop, how I got into K-pop, and why I've kind of continued with certain things in K-pop. So yeah, that is my starter capsule, y'all. Alright, so let's talk about my middle stage K-pop fandom. And this is the stage where I started being more involved with YouTube. I started building my K-pop collection. This is when K-pop became the majority of the music that I listened to. And it's definitely when my taste in K-pop started to definitely become more specialized, and I didn't love just everything K-pop wise. I had some particular favorites. So let's start with this album right here. This is EXO's Exodus. So this album is important to me for two different reasons. One, I consider this EXO's best album ever. Fight me if you wanna, but it's just perfect front to back. There's no skips. But secondly, this was a really big moment for me in my collection and YouTube wise, because this is when I really started to get upset about the multiple covers, especially because this was like 20 covers. There were 10 Chinese, 10 Korean, and I just thought that was overboard. I didn't think it was fair to people who collect. I didn't think it was fair to people who want to be good fans and they can't keep up with all the merchandise and the album sales and everything else. And so this was one of my early rant videos on my channel. That and like the fingerprints that this thing gets, it's unbelievable. You just can't keep it clean. But yeah, all that aside, this is definitely an album that I have loved for a long time. It's a sound from EXO that I think is my favorite sound from them. Definitely Call Me Baby, the follow-up Love Me Right, and then after that Monster. Those are all sounds that I look for EXO, and I think the only thing that makes me sad about this group now is just Lay not really having the involvement that he's had before. He's still a member of EXO to me. Nobody's going to tell me anything different until he says I'm done. But with him being a member but not promoting in several years, it's disappointing. It is very disappointing. Definitely the sound is not as rich to me without his voice, and I miss him. So I really hope that we get to see him and see OT9 again, because that's my fave. I love it when a group has its full membership, so it'd be nice to see that at least one last time. Next, we have this, which is In Black's Broken. I have it in plastic because it's signed. I also took the CD out because this is my only copy of Broken, and I didn't want to keep disturbing the cover in order to listen to the CD. This is my favorite album by In Black. It is an album that should have been their last album, only because the last album they did was not even really promoted, and it was a sad breakup all the way around. I would have much rather them to go out on this note than any other note. However, In Black is a group that is one of the unsung stories of K-pop. They had so many good singles. They had such a rich sound, such an interesting sound. Some of my favorite K-pop songs of all time are by this group, and Be a Man is not only a beautiful song, but an amazing video, and the video and the song match perfectly with the packaging for this album. Like, it's everything you could ever want. Everything goes together. And I wish them all the best of luck in their current endeavors, but there'll never be another In Black. And for that, I'm very sad. Still very, very sad. Next, let's talk about this right here. This is Blockbuster by Block B. It's an album that I should have had years ago, but I only recently acquired. Block B is interesting to me because before Block B, I'd never really heard anything like them in K-pop, and nothing really like them in Western music too. I mean, there had always been boy bands, there had always been rappers, there had even been rap groups full of boys, but there had never really been like a boy rap band like them outside of Big Bang. So Big Bang definitely is a template by which a lot of groups follow, but Block B was like hardcore underground rappers, and then these beautiful like vocal ballad singers, and then this interesting mix in between, and there are like jazz songs on the album, and then like really powerful kick butt stuff, and then there's party songs, and then there's coffee shop songs. Like, I just had never heard anything like them, and to this day I don't really think they get enough acknowledgement for kind of the way they knock down genres. Like, they prove that just because you're in a boy band, it doesn't mean that you're all just like slickness and, you know, manufactured and overly polished. There's a lot of raw energy on a Block B album, and while their sound now doesn't really at all reflect what you hear here, I think in a lot of ways this album set up the stage for what Block B is now, especially for who Zico has become in the Korean music scene. And I follow him quite a bit. Yes, he's done some very problematic things in the past, but as you saw from where I came from in music, I tend to have problematic faves. I don't know what to do with myself. But yeah, Zico has definitely been a force in music, and I think that this album set the stage for a lot of that, because this is definitely when I started to think, okay, there's something special here. There's definitely something very different, something to be looking for here. Next, we have this, which is IU's Modern Times. Before IU, there wasn't a female vocalist in K-pop that I followed as a soloist. Like, I didn't even think about it. I just figured all I liked were K-pop groups and Rain. That was it. And then IU came out with this album, and Friday is on here, and Friday just blew me out of the water. To this day, it is my favorite song by IU. I think it is a perfect song. The video is super duper cute, and there's a charm about IU that I didn't understand until I heard this album. And listening to the album in context with Friday and hearing kind of all the different styles she can go into, how super jazzy she can be, but at the same time being super pop and even almost a little bit folksy, and how elastic her sound is. I gained mad respect for her. I started following her more, and I've been purchasing most of her recent releases. I don't buy any of her cover albums because she has albums full of covers, but I love it. I love her, and she's somebody that has enriched my K-pop experience tremendously, and this album is the start of it for the two of us, so very important to me. Next, we have Orange Caramel's Lipstick. I love this album. I didn't think I liked Cute until I heard Orange Caramel, honestly. I was one of those people that I was a total Cute hater. It is part of the reason why Girls' Generation was never one of my faves initially. I just was like, Cute, yuck, I don't want it. And then I saw the video to Lipstick, and actually before Lipstick, I saw the video to Funny Honey, and it was magic. It was magical, and everything after this from Orange Caramel has been perfect. Catalina was perfect. Do It Like Me was perfect. They are, or My Copycat, I think is what it's called in the American title. They're just perfection, and I hate that we're never going to get this subunit again, because I think they were one of the best things Pledis has ever done. But I stan, and by being able to stan them, it opened the door for me to embrace a lot of the quirky cute I end up being into a lot later on. It really made me look at cute in a totally different light, and I just think it's this group of girls. There's just something really special about this subunit, and I will be honest with you, I still don't really like After School, but I would have traded it all for this to be a permanent fixture. This is amazing. I love this album to bits and pieces, and I love these girls to bits and pieces. Next, let's talk about this, Tiara Sexy Love. So this album was actually really interesting for me, because this was like one of the first Tiara albums I was like really interested in the album and not just the singles, even though Breaking Heart is a superior album. I'm not gonna tell that lie, but this was like the first time I was like, the Tiara album, eh? Also, one of my favorite songs in the world is on here, Day by Day. This was when all the controversy kind of started. This is when Tiara really started to see a decline in their popularity, and I think of this album a lot in my collection, not just because it exemplifies like the best of Tiara in terms of all the styles they can do, but it also speaks to a lot of the lost potential with Tiara, because Tiara should be legendary. They are for those of us who are second gen, but they should have been one of those groups that was huge when third gen was kind of coming into the picture, and instead they've kind of been sidelined for the last few years because of what turned out to be a pack of lies at the end of the day. And it's also a reason why I say we really need to start not being in such a rush to judge idols in certain situations. And I say certain because there's some shit you should judge people right off the bat, but especially in kind of a he said, she said, she said, she said kind of situation, we definitely should wait for more information to come out, because here we are years later and careers ruined behind what was really a bunch of attention-seeking nonsense. And I hate that for them, and I hate the group that they were and the group that they ended up becoming because of that. So yeah, Tiara Sexy Love. It's a great album. I recommend highly for anyone to try to get this. It's a weird photo book, even for Tiara standards, but still, I love it, and I love Tiara, and I wish things had been different for them. Another group that I wish things had been different for is 2NE1. So this is 2NE1's Crush. This is their best album. That's all I can say. It is their best album, and I'm so happy that we can say that 2NE1 went out on their very best at the height of their stardom, when nobody could touch them, with something that was so perfect, front to back, able to listen to. And we still are kind of living in the world after Crush. Definitely 2NE1 were not strangers to popularity before Crush came out. I mean, I'm the Best, which is their biggest hit, came out well before Crush did. Their discography is embarrassingly small for the amount of years they were on the scene and how big it should have been. But you know, YG playing games. But Crush had amazing videos, amazing songs. It just had everything I ever wanted from a girl group, from this girl group. And when I hear this album, it almost brings me to tears, because I think of how much more they had out there for us, and how rumor and innuendo and slander and judgment and everything else kept them from being who they should have been, even today. And you know, sometimes people give me a hard time about the fact that I say that Blackpink is a 2NE1 clone, but I don't say that in a disrespectful way. In fact, it's an honor to be in these ladies' shadows, because what they did for K-pop is still trying to be done right now. And where Blackpink is where 2NE1 has been and should be. And it just didn't materialize for them because YG be playing games. But never forget that they did this album. They did that. And there'll never be another. There'll never be another. You know, they may try to make younger versions. They might try to make prettier versions. And this is no shade to Blackpink. But there'll never be another 2NE1. And because of that, this album means the world to me. I wish everyone else the best of luck in everything that they're doing. I wish these women the best of luck in just pursuing a life after having to go through the clusterfuck that was the way that they ended. But I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud that this was the legacy they left for us. All right, so I got to talk about this because this was the first album I ever pre-ordered for BTS. It was their first full-length album in Korea, and so much of who they are now, before they like super blew up in popularity, is found in this album. There are so many great vocal line songs in this album. There's so much great rap in this album. You can definitely see where like the introspection had shifted from, you know, kind of introspective songs over really hard beats to more introspective songs over kind of more thoughtful music. There's just a lot to love about this album. This is not my first BTS album. My first BTS album was Oh Are You Late Too? But this was the first pre-order I ever had for them, and this really solidified them as a group that I wanted to follow, and where they've gone from here is astronomical. And I'm really glad that I found them before I Need You came out, only because in a lot of ways it's helped me to appreciate what's been going on with them in a realistic way. It's helped me to both realize what a lottery win this year and the last maybe 2 or 3 years have been for BTS, but also it makes me feel like it's got some kind of perspective. Because I think if you ran into BTS during I Need You, Dope, Run, the whole Young Forever series of videos, the Wings album, if you ran into them then, you might say it's a given that this group is going to be successful because look at the music they're putting out. But no, not really. You know, the lead single from this album is Danger. And not saying Danger's not a good song, but it's kind of an awkward title track, to be quite honest with you. And I think that War on Hormone would have been the much better title track. But that just goes to show the growth in the group, the growth in their management, and definitely we continue to see that growth. And I'm very proud of where they're going. But for me, kind of this album is where I started to follow them heavy, and it's why they're my second favorite boy band. Next, we have this album, which is Primary's second second full album, I believe. This album is so important. It is so important. It's so important because prior to this album, I did not know anything about the K-hip hop scene at all. I knew about J-Park. I knew about J-Park because of 2PM. I didn't know anybody else. And this album introduced me to Dynamic Duo. This album introduced me to Zion T, which in turn led me to Crush, which led me to so many other people. This album introduced me to Jinbo, who introduced me to Sumin, and I think the first time I heard Hoodie was through something with Crush. There's so many people in the K-hip hop scene that I discovered through this album and every link that connects to this album that I stand in awe. I'm amazed. And where I am now absolutely starts here. But I found this kind of in the middle of my journey, which is why it's in my middle pack of albums. And then not so honorable mention is this right here. This is Bass by Jonghyun. So I'm sure you were thinking, wow, you did all those albums, you didn't have a single SHINee album in the mix. It's not because SHINee wasn't doing great albums during this time. It's just that during this time, I can't say I had an absolute fave SHINee album because like I just loved everything. I just loved it all. I love everything SHINee. But Bass was super important to me. This was the solo album that I had been wanting for Jonghyun forever after I discovered SHINee, especially when they announced Taemin's solo. I'm like, what do you mean Taemin's getting a solo? Jonghyun hasn't had one yet. And so when this album was first announced and then when it came out, I just fell for it from head to toe. There's not a single skip in this album for me. I love the hidden track. I love the videos. I have a very deep emotional connection with Monodrama. Like, to this day, that song brings tears to my face. And more than anything, I'm really glad that this album came out because people knew that Jonghyun was a songwriter. People knew that Jonghyun had an amazing voice. But I think this was the album that let people know Jonghyun is an artist. And I'm so glad that people got to see and embrace that part of him before he passed. It would have been a complete tragedy on top of what tragedy is already there if people couldn't have acknowledged him for his whole artistic output. But the songs did well on this album. He won music shows. He got to do end of the year shows based on this album. Like, it was embraced so wholeheartedly by so many different factions and areas of the fan base. And for that reason alone, like, it stands out even more than anything that SHINee released during that period of time, because it is so precious to me. And it's something that I would give to anybody if they asked me, what should I listen to? You've got to listen to this album. You've got to listen to this album. All right, so let's get into where I am now as a K-pop fan. All right, so this is me now in K-pop for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I can't show you because it is digital. But yeah, with me in K-pop, I think a lot has changed, but a lot has definitely stayed the same. Much like my Western musical roots, a lot of female singers here, a lot of R&B, kind of New Jack Swing, funk, soul-based stuff here, a lot of kind of smooth grooves and quiet, stormy sounds, but a lot of stuff that I've always loved. And definitely with K-pop, I'm getting back to the heart of the things that I've always loved. So let's start with this. This is Luna's Kim Lip. This is her single with Eclipse, which was the first song that made me want to buy anything by Luna, because I'll Be There was really the first song by Luna I ever heard that I was like, wow, that song is a jam. And if you go way back in my Google Plus page, you'll find me putting that in a post. But after that, I kind of lost sight of Luna, and then Eclipse came out. I'm like, oh, it's that group again. The whole debut kind of rollout has been confusing and has drawn me away in some ways, but then Favorite came out and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to see the whole group. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm still not going to buy every single thing for them because that's just ridiculous. There's just too much stuff to buy. I'm only buying the stuff that's my favorite. I keep saying favorite. I feel like this is a pun session. But yeah, I just appreciate their sound. I appreciate whoever's producing them, and I hope to continue to listen to them in the future. And yeah, it's where I see myself headed. Next is this. This is SHINee's Married to the Music. So this is an older SHINee release at this point, but it is my favorite SHINee album. It is my favorite SHINee album, and that's weird because when I first heard the Odd album, there were a lot of things I didn't like about Odd, but the repackage made up for all of those things. Married to the Music is my favorite title track that SHINee has ever done. My favorite SHINee song right now today is Hold You, which is one of the repack songs. This is my favorite aesthetic for SHINee, Halloween glam, and these were just really good memories for me. I think that Odd was my first comeback for SHINee on YouTube, and it was such a great time for me. This was the album that had come out right before I saw SHINee at SHINee World 5, and I'll forever love SHINee. There's never going to be an era of my K-pop life that they're not going to have some involvement with. If I had to recommend other SHINee stuff for you to listen to now, their Story of Light albums. I love episode 3. I think most people really love episode 2. And Taemin's Moving was really slept on as a repackage, but it is actually a fantastic album from front to back, and I highly recommend people getting into it. But this is where I'll always be. This is where I'll always be. So it was important that I made sure SHINee was a part of my future, because how can I be a K-pop fan without them? Next we have this, which is Mamamoo. I stay with my problematic faves. Actually, I had stopped listening to Mamamoo for a minute. I did not like the Da Komane song, I was disappointed by some of the stuff that Mamamoo had done. I was disappointed with the way that their record label had handled some of the things that Mamamoo had done. And I thought that I would never get back to enjoying them because it was also the same time when their music kind of took a nosedive for me. And then they came back in amazing ways. And now I'm glad to like them again. I feel like they're definitely getting back up my favorites list. Hwasa is just everything. I want her and Loco to get married, have babies. But I just really appreciate the Mamamoo today and the fact that I can enjoy them again now. So this is where I'm headed. I see myself enjoying more of Mamamoo moving forward unless, again, something crazy comes out. But, you never know what the future brings. Next, we have this, which is Suran's Walking. This is definitely a huge part of where I see myself with K-pop today, because K-pop today for me is all about female vocalist, soloist, R&B, K-hip-hop, K-indie, and she's a big, huge source of it. I talked to you about Primary opening up a lot of doors for me. Primary's third release, Suran did Mannequin, which was a great song. It's the first time I'd ever heard her voice, and since then I have been a fan. So when her solo came out, I knew I had to have it, and I was not disappointed. It's a really hard album to find now. It is very difficult to find, especially for a reasonable price, so I'm glad I got it when I could. But this is absolutely where my interest in K-pop is growing. 100, 300, 1,000%. Next, we have this, Crush on You. He is my new favorite male solo vocalist. It was hard. It was kind of a toss-up between he and Dean. But I think that I just really like Crush a lot more for things that I don't necessarily look for Dean. Like with Crush, I'm not only looking for amazing vocals and great songwriting, but he definitely brings more of a jazz feel to his music, which jazz was a big part of my coming up and my developing my taste. He recently did a cover of Chet Baker's I Fall in Love Too Easily, and there's always been a hint of that in his music. He has done little hints of Earth, Wind, and Fire in some of his songs. His song Bittersweet is just... it's so 90s kind of bad boy, and I love him. I love everything he does. He's so prolific, and he gets involved with so many fun projects with so many really cool and interesting people that I just can't help but love him. It doesn't mean I love Dean any lesser for it. It's just that I know that at the end of the day, if I had to pull one person into my lifeboat, it would probably be Crush. Next, let's talk about this, Bad Boy by Red Velvet. Perfect Velvet is the perfect album for this group, for my interest in Red Velvet. You guys know when it comes to Me and Happiness, I was not a fan, and I was kind of resentful because of how SM had treated FX, and it seemed like they just decided that I have a favorite child and you are not it, and left them to die. But as time has gone on, I've really appreciated Red Velvet because they combine a lot of my favorite things in K-pop. They combine a lot of the quirkiness from An Orange Caramel. They combine a lot of the singability and kind of, just earworminess of Tiara. But then they also have that kind of soulful, sometimes hip-hop, really interesting ballads that To Anyone had. Not that they sound like To Anyone. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, they can do a girl crush, but they can also do a crazy abstract concept. They could do something super, super cutie, and it all works for them. Like, they can do everything. And I just couldn't help but fall in love with them. And I can't wait to get my copy of Summer Magic because they are magical. I love them. I love them. And I just can't believe that we're here today, and I expect to stand them for way, way longer. Next, we have this, BTS's Love Yourself Tear. I didn't pick this because it's my favorite BTS album. I think my favorite BTS album is still the Young Forever album. But we're talking about where I'm headed in K-pop. And BTS has become my second favorite boy band. And I look forward to every release that they do. I love the fact that you can go into Target and Walmart and buy a BTS album. I think that is crazy banana nuts. I never thought that day would come. I love the fact that they have a stadium show scheduled. I love the fact that they've been seen on so many platforms. And I know that there has been a negative consequence to that, and that I feel like the fan side of things has torn international and maybe even Korean fandom apart. There was a time when I felt like all of us were really happy for each other, and I feel like a lot of that has lessened due to, pettiness on every side. On every side. You can't say it's not true, because it is. Even if it's not the people you fuck with, there's other people that you don't fuck with that are super duper petty. But this is the future of K-pop, and it's a future of K-pop that I'm into, that I like, and so since this was their latest, that's why I'm showing it. But I look forward to seeing where they go, how they grow, and yeah, I'm here for it. Next we have Dean. When is the new album coming out, Dean? I need it. So Dean's 130 Trouble Mood is probably the most viewed video on my channel. I did a review of this album, and I talked a lot about how it reminded me of Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite, which you saw in my Western kind of beginnings. It's got all these sounds that I really enjoy. It has like a whole storyline to it. It's very unique and interesting, and it's just a lot of things that I didn't anticipate coming out of Korea. And I think that this is the future for Korea. I think this sound and this aesthetic and everything that's going on with the K-hip hop scene, it's the future, and we need to be prepared for it, because Dean also is a songwriter, and before he became a soloist, he was writing songs for your faves. So their styles are influenced by this particular scene. So I definitely feel like this is my future. It's one of the albums I recommend everyone listen to. Even if you don't think you like it, just listen to it so you can know for sure whether you like it or not. But perfect album. Interesting album art. But yes, I 100%. Dean's 130 Mood. It's so good. It's so good. Then we have this, which I kind of surprised myself by picking this from my capsule, but I do think that it's important. VIX was one of the few secondy third, I don't know what you call them, like those in between second and third generation groups that I liked in the beginning, even though they weren't super popular in the beginning. And then the more popular they got, I feel like the more we kind of strayed away from each other. Because I remember really liking Starlight when I first heard it. I liked Fantastic when I first heard it. And now I feel like I'm coming back around to VIX. And I feel like they're kind of making this journey a 360 journey for me, because I really loved Error. And then after Error, I was kind of like, I don't know, not so much. But then Ode VIX came out. It's fantastic. It's everything I want. It's everything that I kind of wish that SHINee had been able to do before the Story of Light album. Everything I wish OT5 could have explored again. And VIX has been coming out with really good stuff since then. The Robbie solo was not my fave, but there was a lot of good music on it. Leo's Touch and Sketch, the Canvas album in general, is wonderful. Please get it. I'm going to be getting a copy. I encourage you to get a copy. It's so good. It is so good. I did not know to expect Touch and Sketch from him, because I remember Beautiful Liar, which was not my favorite. But yeah, I'm really getting back into VIX, and it's a great thing to be exposed to. It's nice to be able to rediscover your faves and kind of bring things back to the start. And then lastly, it is this. And I picked this as the last thing to show you because it's unexpected for me. So me and Tan have kind of a mixed bag. I really liked the Y album, bar one song. I wasn't a fan of the I album. I am not sure how I feel about Something New. And I didn't even listen to the Christmas album because I just, in general, don't listen to most Christmas albums except for the EXO Christmas albums. But My Voice was something that I listened to later on because I'm like, I'm picking up some Girls' Generation albums that I've wanted in my collection for a minute. Let me just give this a listen. And like the more the track list went on, the better the album got. It's almost like the beginning I was disinterested, and by the time I got to the end, I was outstanded. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I was definitely shook. That's better for it. I was shook by how outstanding the album was. And it made me change my mind about her. It made me change my mind about a lot of people that I think I had written off in the past. And so just like I rediscovered VIX, I'm rediscovering Taeyeon's voice, and I'm going back and I'm seeing if maybe I overlooked a couple of other people. I think I've spent a lot of my latter K-pop, just like I didn't really see it for Red Velvet at first and now I love them. I kind of lost touch with VIX and now I'm totally into it. Taeyeon, I'm really reevaluating her sound and how I feel about that. You know, it's a delicate balance, my K-pop life today, between old faves and new faves and kind of the styles I'll always like, and you know, being okay with maybe leaving people behind for a minute if they're not performing a style that I'm familiar with, and then maybe going back to revisit them because they might have a surprise for me. It's all about keeping your options open. It's about discovery. It's about kind of letting the wind lead you on. There's definitely people that are automatic, like, I'm going to get you because I love you and I know you'll never let me down. But there's other people that, you know, they can come back and they can surprise you with something really special, really awesome. And I'm glad I came back and I rediscovered this particular release. And I'm glad I rediscovered a lot of things. And that is what this last bit of my K-pop life has been, is rediscovery. So that's everything. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it was super duper long. It's probably one of the longest videos I've ever done, but I hope that you stuck with it, and I will talk with you guys later. Bye.